Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 33.
Imagine falling in love at first sight. You see someone from across a field, and instantly you just know.
Right, like that classic lightning bolt moment.
Exactly. You finally figure out who they are, only to discover that they literally died yesterday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is devastating.
Right. Now, for most of us, that is where the story ends. It's just a tragic, missed connection.
Yeah, you mourn for a minute and you move on.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But imagine if instead of moving on, you decided the most logical next step was to pull up a chair next to their coffin and just start talking to it.
It completely shatters any normal parameter we have for human interaction.
Right.
Or grief, or even romance.
It really does.
It takes the idea of the missed connection and just, well, forces it into a realm that is deeply uncomfortable, but also profoundly fascinating.
We are incredibly excited to have you here with us as we unpack a narrative that, quite frankly, absolutely bends the rules of life, death, time, and karma.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. Our source material today is an excerpt from the classical Chinese text Liao Zai Zi, which translates to Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio.
Right, by Pu Songling.
Yeah. And specifically, we're diving into story which is centered on a character known as the Magistrate's Daughter, or Lu Gongnu.
Which is such a layered story.
Oh, totally. We are going to explore a ghost story, a romance, and this incredibly complex look at, spiritual bureaucracy all rolled into one.
It's got a bit of everything.
Okay, let's unpack this because the premise alone is just wild.
What's fascinating here is that this text doesn't just tell a spooky story to thrill you,
Right.
It is providing a really highly detailed blueprint of how spiritual devotion, karmic debt, and the actual mechanical logistics of reincarnation operated within that worldview.
A worldview of early Qing Dynasty China.
Exactly. It treats the supernatural not as some chaotic, unpredictable realm of monsters, but as a highly regulated, almost corporate system.
And we have a main character who essentially decides to, hack that corporate system through sheer romantic willpower.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Let's set the scene for you. We have this guy named Zhang Yudan. He is from a place called Zaoyuan,
Right.
and the text describes him as a scholar who is carefree, unbound by convention, and he is just studying in this quiet, secluded temple.
A very classic setup for these kinds of tales.
Right, so he is out in the wild one day, and he sees her, the daughter of Magistrate Lu. And I want to pause here, because she is not, your typical delicate, cloistered scholar's crush.
Not at all. The text is very specific about her presentation, and it's meant to be striking to the reader of that era.
Yeah, she really stands out.
She is a hunter. She rides a small black horse. She wears a magnificent mink coat, and she possesses a stunning, almost painting-like beauty.
Wait, she's a hunter wearing a mink coat? That is so vivid.
It is. In a society that heavily prized female domesticity and seclusion, especially for the daughters of high-ranking officials, she represents a highly dynamic, active, and really transgressive form of femininity.
And that is exactly what completely captures Zhang's attention. He is instantly obsessed.
Right.
He goes home, he can't stop thinking about her, he is running her image over and over in his mind. But then, tragedy strikes. He learns that she has suddenly died.
So abrupt.
Yeah. Now, because her family's hometown is incredibly far away, the text mentions they're from Sanhan, they can't transport her body back immediately.
Which was a common logistical issue back then.
Right. So her coffin is temporarily housed right there in the very temple where Zhang happens to be studying.
Which creates an incredibly intimate yet, undeniably morbid proximity.
Yeah, it's just a bit morbid.
He is living and studying right alongside her physical remains. It places him in this sort of liminal space. Temples often served this function in classical China, acting as way stations for the dead when families couldn't immediately return a body to its ancestral burial ground.
And this is where Zhang's behavior goes from, a sad crush to something entirely different.
Definitely.
He doesn't just mourn her from afar. He begins a highly specific, intense ritual that lasts for half a month.
Every single day.
Yeah. Every morning, he offers incense. Every time he eats, he sacrifices a portion of his food to her. He prays at her coffin.
And his prayers are incredibly direct, too.
Right. He basically says, when you were alive, I was restricted. But now that you're dead, there are no taboos. So please, come visit me.
That phrase, death has no taboos, or Siwu Jinji, is a crucial key to understanding the philosophy of this text.
How so?
Well, in the living world, the social boundaries preventing a carefree, lower status scholar from mingling with the daughter of a high ranking magistrate would be completely insurmountable.
Right, they run in totally different circles.
Exactly. The hierarchies of class, gender, and social propriety were rigid, heavily enforced walls. But Zhang recognizes something profound here, which is that death is the great equalizer.
It dissolves those social barriers completely.
Yes, the strict rules of Confucian society do not apply to a corpse.
It's like he's looking at death not as an end, but as a loophole.
A loophole, I like that.
Think about the last time you desperately wanted to reach out to someone, right? But you felt you couldn't because of social anxiety or professional boundaries.
We've all been there.
Now imagine if all those rules just evaporated. I was thinking about this, and it is kind of like leaving a series of heartfelt, increasingly desperate voicemails on a disconnected phone number.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
You know the line is dead. You know nobody's paying the bill on the other end, but you just keep calling and talking into the void day after day, leaving your food, lighting your incense, and then one night the dead phone rings back.
That analogy captures the one-sided exertion perfectly, because his grief and his devotion completely override any natural, self-preserving fear of the supernatural.
He's not scared at all.
No. The text specifically notes that he treats her like a deity. He elevates her in his mind to a status worthy of worship. And that mental shift moves his actions away from what we might see as a creepy obsession with a corpse and transforms it into a profound act of spiritual reverence.
I do have to push back a little on Zhang here, though.
Okay, go for it.
I mean, we are sitting here calling it profound spiritual reverence, but isn't it also deeply obsessive?
Sure, but by modern standards.
Put yourself in his shoes. He literally only saw her once, from a distance, while she was riding a horse. And based on that single glance, he decides he is soulmates with her and starts treating her coffin like a personal altar. If someone did that today, we would be incredibly concerned.
Oh, it is entirely extreme by modern standards, and frankly, it was extreme by the standards of his own time, which is why it makes for such a compelling story.
Fair point.
But within the context of classical Chinese romantic literature, this concept of king, which means deep, obsessive, transcendent emotion, is highly valued.
So the obsession is kind of the point.
Exactly. A love at first sight that transcends even death is a marker of his deep sensitivity. He is unbound by societal norms in life, so it makes sense he is unbound by the physical reality of her death.
Okay, I see.
His obsession is framed as a virtue of his character. It shows his capacity for deep, unwavering feeling, and crucially, within the logic of the supernatural ecosystem of the story, the universe actually responds to that intense focus.
Because the phone does ring back.
It does.
One night, he is studying by his lamp, he looks up, and there she is, the girl from the horse, smiling, standing right there in his room.
Just manifesting out of nowhere.
Yeah. She tells him that she was so moved by his devotion that she decided not to avoid the suspicion of eloping, which is a fantastic line, by the way.
It really is.
And they begin this nightly romance. The text literally says from then on, there was no empty night.
She responds to the sheer volume of his ritual. I mean, the incense, the food, the prayers, these are the energetic currency of the spiritual realm.
So he basically funded her trip over.
Pretty much. He essentially paid enough into the system to allow her spirit to physically manifest. He built a bridge of intention.
But this romance is blooming with a massive, looming catch.
Right, there's always a catch.
It's not just a casual, ghostly fling. She has a very specific reason for sticking around, an ulterior motive, or rather, a spiritual emergency.
Yes.
And this completely shifts the story from a supernatural romance to an active, high-stakes rescue mission.
The narrative pivots incredibly sharply here. She reveals her dark secret to Zhang.
Hunting.
Exactly. Remember how she was introduced as a hunter, wearing mink, riding a horse. Well, that very activity that made her so dynamic and attractive to him is actually the source of her current spiritual torment.
She tells him that her love of hunting, specifically killing deer and roebuck for fun, has generated heavy karma.
It's a huge burden.
Yeah, because she took life for pleasure. She is now a restless spirit. She says her sins are deep and heavy, and she has nowhere to go in the afterlife.
She is essentially stuck in a terrifying spiritual limbo.
That's so dark.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of Buddhist philosophy embedded in the text, the spiritual realm is deeply transactional. Karma is a literal ledger.
Like an accounting book.
Yes, exactly. The taking of a sentient life, especially for sport, rather than mere survival, adds a massive heavy debt to that ledger.
Right?
Her status as a high-ranking magistrate's daughter offered her zero protection once her heart stopped beating. The spiritual bureaucracy doesn't care about your mortal father's political connections, you know? It only cares about the weight of your actions.
I hear what you're saying about the ledger, but doesn't that make the spiritual realm feel somewhat corrupt?
How do you mean?
Like, if it's just a transactional ledger, it feels less about genuine moral growth and more about accounting. You commit a sin, you get a bill, you pay it off, you move on.
That is a very Western, post-Enlightenment way of viewing morality as a state of internal being.
Okay.
But in this specific syncretic framework of Buddhism, Taoism, and folk religion, the universe operates on an energetic equilibrium.
So it's not about feeling sorry.
Right, it's less about corruption and more about physics. An action creates a reaction. Taking a life creates a deficit of positive energy.
Oh, I get it.
You have to fill that deficit to restore the balance. It's an energetic law of thermodynamics. She is in a deficit, and she doesn't have the means to generate positive energy on her own because, well, she is dead.
So she begs Zhang for a massive favor.
A huge favor.
She says, essentially, if you truly love me, you have to help me wash away this debt. And the way to do that is by chanting the Diamond Sutra for her.
Yes.
But not just once.
Mm-hmm.
She needs a specific massive quantity of chants to cleanse her sins so she can be cleared for reincarnation.
This introduces the concept of merit transfer, or parinamana in Sanskrit. Zhang has to act as her proxy.
Like paying her spiritual bills.
Exactly. By performing the highly disciplined, spiritually positive act of chanting a sacred text with pure intention, he generates spiritual merit. He then essentially signs that merit over to her account to offset her karmic debt.
Let's talk about the Diamond Sutra specifically. Why that text? Why not just say a generic prayer?
Well, the Diamond Sutra is one of the most revered and powerful texts in Mahayana Buddhism.
Okay.
Its core teaching is about cutting through the illusions of the material world. The illusion of self, the illusion of permanence.
Hence the name Diamond.
Precisely. It's called the Diamond Sutra because its teachings are meant to cut like a diamond blade through ignorance.
Wow.
By chanting it, Zhang is actively generating the highest form of spiritual clarity. The girl is trapped by her attachment to her past actions and the literal weight of the lives she ended. The Diamond Sutra is the specific spiritual medicine required to sever those heavy earthly attachments.
And Zhang just steps up without hesitation.
He really does.
He agrees, and he starts waking up every single night, going to her coffin, rolling his prayer beads, and passionately reciting these complex sutras.
It's a huge commitment.
It completely changes their dynamic. He isn't just a guy with a crush anymore. He is her savior.
Yeah.
He is her spiritual advocate.
He becomes a spiritual battery. He is charging her soul with the positive energy it desperately needs to move on.
That's a great way to put it.
And this immense effort binds them together in a deeply intimate way, far beyond their physical nocturnal interactions. Notice the physical limitations the text places on the ghosts, too.
Yeah.
She isn't an all-powerful floating spirit who can walk through walls and teleport. She is incredibly vulnerable.
That part was fascinating to me. It makes the ghost feel so grounded.
Right.
Like during festivals when the living are out celebrating and Zhang wants to take her out with him, she says she is too physically weak to walk. Her spiritual feet are too frail.
It's such a striking detail.
So what does Zhang do? He carries her on his back. The text explicitly says he carries her like a baby and notes that she is entirely weightless.
He even carries her to his academic exams this way.
Yeah, and they can only travel at night, avoiding the sun, which represents the pure yang energy that would destroy her delicate yin spirit.
The weightlessness is a beautiful, evocative detail. It underscores her lack of physical substance, since she is a ghost, after all. Yet it perfectly highlights the heavy emotional and spiritual burden Zhang is willingly carrying for her. He is literally bearing her karma.
Wow.
She is entirely dependent on a living human for mobility, for spiritual cleansing, for her very existence.
It's just such a vivid image to hold in your mind. Imagine being this scholar, walking miles through the dark of night, carrying the weightless ghost of the woman you love on your back.
All while tethered to her.
Yeah, tethered to you, while you literally chant her soul out of purgatory. And she tries to repay him, too.
She does.
She repays his massive effort with foresight. Right before his upcoming autumn exams, she tells him to skip them.
That's a huge moment.
She says his fortune is thin and all his effort would just be wasted.
Which is an incredible test of his devotion, perhaps the ultimate test for a man in his position.
Wait. She tells him his fortune is too thin to pass, and he just accepts it.
He does.
Let's pause and look at what skipping this exam actually means. For a scholar in this era, the civil service exams, the Keiju, they were everything.
Everything. They dictated your entire life.
Right. They were the singular path to career advancement, wealth, social standing, and family honor. Men spend their entire lives from early childhood memorizing text just for a shot at passing.
It was incredibly competitive.
So skipping an exam is like throwing away a winning lottery ticket or dropping out of medical school on the day of finals, and he just listens to her and stays home. That shows an ultimate, unshakable trust.
It demonstrates that his internal priority matrix has completely shifted. Worldly success, which the exams represent, is no longer his primary goal.
That's huge.
His primary focus, his entire world, is this nocturnal spiritual relationship. He trusts her sight into the unseen world more than he trusts the societal expectations of the waking world.
It really isolates them in their own little bubble.
It's also a subtle nod from the author, Prue Songling, who famously failed the higher-level exams repeatedly himself.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
Yes. His heroes often find their true calling and moral victory outside of the rigid, frustrating exam system.
So Zhang is diligently doing the work. He skipped his exams. Years go by. He is chanting, carrying her, living this intense double life hidden from the rest of the world.
Doing the hard work.
But as we establish, karma is a ledger. And if you pay down a debt consistently, eventually the balance hits zero.
Exactly.
Which brings us to an inevitable, heartbreaking separation.
The mechanics of the spiritual world demand progression. You cannot stall reincarnation once the ledger is balanced. The bureaucracy will come to collect its newly cleared soul.
Right. They want their paperwork finalized.
Right.
So 4 or 5 years pass like this. In the waking world, Magistrate Liu, the girl's father, has lost his official post.
What terrible downfall.
He has fallen on hard times and become poor. He travels back to the temple and realizes he cannot even afford to transport his daughter's coffin back to their hometown for a proper burial.
He's stranded.
He's going to have to bury her in some random field far from home.
That is a terrible, shameful fate for a high-status family in a culture that heavily venerates ancestors. It represents a complete loss of dignity and familial duty.
But Zhang steps in again.
Of course he does.
He offers his own plot of land near the temple.
Yeah.
And he pays out of pocket for the entire burial himself.
A huge gesture.
Magistrate Liu is incredibly grateful, but he is completely clueless about Zhang's true motives. Liu just thinks this is an incredibly generous, maybe slightly eccentric stranger.
He has no idea this guy has been essentially married to his dead daughter's ghost for half a decade.
Not a clue.
This physical act of burying her remains mirrors the completion of his spiritual work for her soul. He is putting her physical attachments to rest.
Because shortly after the burial, one night, the girl comes to him weeping.
The moment has arrived.
She declares that their 5-year romance is over. Thanks to his relentless nightly chanting, the sutra count has been fulfilled. The debt is officially paid off.
The ledger is clean.
She is cleared by the bureaucracy to be reborn. And the details she gives him are wild. She doesn't just vaguely say, I'm going to heaven or I'm passing on.
No, she has an itinerary.
She literally gives him an itinerary. She says she is scheduled to be reborn into the Liu family, specifically the household of a Ministry of Revenue official in Hebei province.
This is where we clearly see the hyper-specific logistics of the afterlife in this mythology. It is not a nebulous void.
It's so structured.
It is a scheduled, rigidly organized transit system. Reincarnation isn't random. It has designated destinations down to the specific family name, the father's exact government occupation, and the geographical province.
The celestial bureaucracy mirrors the earthly imperial bureaucracy perfectly.
Exactly.
It's like she got her deployment orders from celestial human resources. But before she leaves, she makes this staggering promise to him.
A massive promise.
She says, if you don't forget today, come find me in exactly 15 years on August 16th.
A highly specific date that anchors their supernatural romance firmly back into the relentless, unforgiving ticking of mortal time.
And Zhang's reaction is so painfully, understandably human, he immediately protests.
Which makes sense.
He points out the cruel tragedy of time. He says, I'm already over 30. In 15 years, I'll be nearing 50. I'll be an old man. I'll have one foot in the grave. What's the point of meeting then?
He's doing the math.
He is acutely aware of human aging, whereas she, as a spirit, has been entirely suspended in time.
It highlights a tragic disconnect that they haven't had to face until now. She is about to hit the biological reset button, starting over as an infant with a whole new life ahead of her.
And he's just stuck.
He is trapped in a mortal body that is actively breaking down. Even so, she insists. She promises that she will serve him as a slave or a servant in her next life, just to repay the enormous debt she feels she owes him for saving her soul from damnation.
Which is a wild power dynamic shift if you think about it.
Completely.
He has been her savior. He has carried her around when she was weak. He paid for her funeral. He literally washed her soul clean with years of lost sleep and chanting. Now she is leaving to get a fresh start as a wealthy official's daughter, and he is left alone in his crumbling mortal body holding a 15-year IOU.
It is a profound sacrifice. He gave his prime years to save her, and the reward is a promise that seems almost impossible to fulfill in any satisfying way, given the realities of aging.
The parting scene is cinematic. He escorts her for the final time, walking 6 or 7 miles in the dark, until they reach what the text describes as a supernatural transit hub.
I love this scene.
It's out on a main road, and suddenly there are carriages, horses, and clusters of spirits everywhere.
Just a busy celestial bus stop.
Yeah. And there's this one specific beautiful carriage with embroidered tassels and red curtains, and just one old woman inside. The old woman sees the girl and calls out, "Come."
And the girl answers, "Coming."
She tells Zhang not to forget her, hops into the carriage, and vanishes into the otherworldly traffic.
That scene is brilliant in its execution. The mundane nature of it, the old woman calling out like a bus driver, checking if the last passenger is boarding.
You're getting on.
Exactly. It completely normalizes the supernatural. It grounds the deeply mystical process of reincarnation in the familiar, everyday visuals of travel, commuting, and bureaucracy.
So the carriage departs, the supernatural highway fades, and Zhang is left completely alone in the dirt. He goes home, and he is just ticking days off the calendar on his wall.
Just waiting.
He is just waiting to get old. But here's where it gets really interesting. Zhang's spiritual exercises, all that sutra chanting he did for her, are about to have an entirely unexpected side effect on his own biology.
Because karma, as we established, is a ledger.
Right.
And while Zhang was focused on paying down her debt, he was simultaneously, perhaps inadvertently, accumulating a massive amount of positive merit for himself.
Just by doing the work.
Intrinsically, through his own pure actions, selflessness, and devotion, the universe doesn't ignore that kind of sustained positive energy.
Wait, I mean, that makes total sense. Even after she leaves, Zhang keeps chanting. It became a habit, part of his core routine. He hopes to earn spiritual merit for himself now. And one night, he has a profound dream. A deity appears to him and says that his intentions are great, but if he wants true, lasting results, he must go to the South Sea.
A specific destination.
Now, Zhang asks a very logical question. How far is the South Sea? And the deity gives this incredible cryptic answer. It's close. It's right in the square inch of your heart, or your mind, depending on how you translate the classical Chinese.
The South Sea in the square inch of your heart. This is arguably the most profound philosophical statement within the entire text. To understand this, you need to know that the South Sea, or Mount Putuo, is traditionally associated with Guanyin, the bodhisattva of compassion.
Okay.
It represents a holy pilgrimage site, a physical place you travel to in order to seek blessings. But the deity in the dream is explicitly telling Zhang that true enlightenment, true spiritual elevation in this worldview isn't about physical travel.
About a road trip.
Right. It isn't about external rituals, temples, or literal geography anymore. It is about internal moral purity. The sacred destination he is seeking is already within himself.
So the ultimate pilgrimage is an inward journey.
Precisely.
And Zhang actually takes this metaphorical advice to heart. He doesn't pack his bags for the coast. He turns inward. He purifies his mind. He becomes doubly clean in his daily practice.
And it pays off.
It does. Things start going really well for him in the waking world, too. His 2 adult sons, Zhang and Ming, take their high-level exams. The very exam Zhang skipped all those years ago, and they pass brilliantly.
A huge deal for the family.
Zhang's family becomes incredibly wealthy, but the text goes out of its way to note that despite his sudden wealth and elevated status, his moral character doesn't change one bit. He continues doing good deeds. He remains humble.
He is demonstrating that his spiritual development is authentic and deeply rooted. He isn't corrupted by worldly success.
He kept his ego in check.
He maintains the South Sea in his heart regardless of his bank account. And because of this sustained, unshakable moral purity, the bureaucracy of heaven takes notice of his individual case file.
It certainly does. He has another dream. This time, a messenger in blue clothes comes and escorts him to a grand celestial palace.
Moving up the chain of command.
He meets a figure who looks like a bodhisattva. This high-ranking deity praises Zhang for being a genuinely good person, but notes a problem in his file.
There's always a glitch.
Zhang's natural predestined lifespan is supposed to be short. He is scheduled to die soon. So the deity explains that because of his exceptional merit, they actually petitioned the Supreme Lord for an extension on his life.
Let's look at the hierarchy again because it's brilliant.
Right, the paperwork.
The bodhisattva figure, a highly elevated spiritual being, doesn't just wave a magic wand and grant him immortality. Even they have to follow protocol.
They have to ask the boss.
They have to file a formal petition to the Supreme Lord, the Jade Emperor, to legally alter Zhang's destined lifespan. It is a strict, legalistic process, even at the absolute highest levels of the divine. You can't just bypass the system, you have to amend the paperwork.
Bureaucracy everywhere. So the petition is approved. But they don't just hand him a magic pill or sprinkle fairy dust on him.
No, it's an interactive process.
They order a celestial servant to lead him to a pool. It's an incredibly clear, clean pool. You can count the fish swimming in it. The water is warm, and it smells strongly of lotus leaves.
A very sensory experience.
Zhang steps in to bathe. But as he moves deeper, he suddenly loses his footing, slips, and goes completely under the water. He wakes up from the dream with a massive start, gasping for air in his bed.
Water, across almost all global mythologies, and specifically in Buddhist traditions, signifies purification and rebirth.
Like a baptism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the lotus, specifically, is a symbol of rising pure and undefiled from the muddy waters of earthly existence. By slipping and going fully under the water, he crosses a definitive threshold. It is a baptismal moment.
But the effects aren't just a spiritual feeling of peace. They are incredibly, viscerally, shockingly physical.
This is the crazy part.
When he wakes up, he feels completely energized. His eyesight, which had been failing, is suddenly razor sharp. And then the physical transformation really kicks in.
It starts with his hair, right?
Yeah, he strokes his beard and all his white hairs just fall out. Pluck, pluck, pluck. Gone. Then, over a bit more time, the black hairs start falling out too. His wrinkles literally vanish from his face.
Incredible.
Over the course of a few months, his physical body essentially reverse ages until he looks exactly like a 15 or 16-year-old boy.
The heavens don't just stop him from dying, they hit the complete biological reset button.
Which is wild.
It is a bizarre, deeply unconventional, almost comedic reward. He is given back the youth he sacrificed while he was up all night chanting for the ghost. It's a literal return on his investment of time.
It's like he unlocked the ultimate spiritual skincare routine, but the slider on the app just went way too far to the left, and now he is essentially Benjamin buttoning his way through his late 40s.
That's a perfect analogy.
And it affects his personality, too. The text notes that he starts acting like a playful kid. He enjoys games and frivolous things.
Which introduces a fascinating philosophical concept. It suggests that the physical body and the mind are intimately connected rather than completely separate entities.
How do you mean?
In ancient Chinese internal alchemy, or Naden, the goal is to refine the body's energies back to a state of primordial, infant-like purity. Returning to a youthful physical body naturally returns him to a youthful, unburdened state of mind.
I just kept thinking about this from a practical standpoint, though. What must this be like for his adult sons?
Oh, it must be so stressful.
Think about it. Zhang and Ming are highly educated, serious, dignified scholars who just passed their imperial exams. And now they have to parent their teenage-looking, wildly wealthy father who won't stop playing games in the courtyard.
Just a total role reversal.
The text literally says his sons have to frequently correct his behavior because he's acting too immature. It's hilarious, but also just so intensely strange. Imagine having to scold your dad for playing tag because he drank magic dream water.
It is deeply strange, and it upends the entire Confucian model of filial piety, where the elder is the undisputed authority figure.
That must be so confused.
While it seems like a massive victory for Zhang because, he gets his life extended and his youth restored, this raises an important question. What happens to a 15-year promise A promise heavily reliant on recognition when one of the people involved no longer looks anything like themselves.
Oh, man. This is where the story shifts from a miraculous triumph to something absolutely devastating. The 15 years of waiting are finally up.
The clock has run out. The date, August 16th, has arrived.
Let's look at how the timelines converge. Zhang's mortal wife passes away right around this time. His sons are trying to set him up with new women from prominent families.
Which makes sense socially.
Because remember, they are a rich, respected family now, and their dad looks like a very handsome, eligible teenager. But Zhang refuses all of them. He says, I have to go to Hebei. You remember the promise from the ghost carriage?
He is a man of his word. He travels to the specific address he was given 15 years prior, the household of the Liu family, the Ministry of Revenue official in Hebei.
And the text gives us the perspective of the reincarnated girl, which is crucial. She was born into this Liu family, but she wasn't a normal baby.
No, she retained her memories.
She was born with the ability to speak, and she remembered her entire past life, every detail. As she grew up, she became incredibly clever and beautiful, and her new parents absolutely adored her. But whenever wealthy, prominent families came to propose marriage, she flatly refused.
Because she, too, remembers the promise. Despite being in a new body, her soul is anchored to that 15-year timeline. She is waiting for Zhang.
Her parents are utterly baffled. They ask her why she is rejecting all these great matches, and she tells them the whole story. She tells them about her past life as a hunter, the karma, the chanting scholar, and the promise she made.
Just lays it all out.
Now, put yourself in her parents' shoes. Their reaction is the most logical thing in the world. They laugh and say, silly girl. This Zhang guy you were waiting for, he was in his 30s 15 years ago. He would be 50 years old by now.
Which is old for that time period.
They say his bones are probably rotting in the ground. And even if he is alive, he's going to be the toothless, bald old man. Why would you throw your life away for that?
Her parents are operating on the strict, unforgiving logic of mortal time. And their assumption is entirely reasonable.
They're just being good parents.
This is what makes the daughter's stubborn faith so heroic, but it also perfectly sets the stage for the impending tragedy. They are speaking two different languages. She's speaking the language of karmic destiny, and they are speaking the language of biological reality.
They realize she won't change her mind, so the parents conspire. They tell the gatekeepers of their estate to refuse any guests.
Shutting the borders.
They plan to just wait out the deadline, let August 16th pass, and assume she'll give up hope when Zhang inevitably doesn't show up.
They are acting out of love. They're trying to protect their daughter from what they see as a crippling delusion that is going to ruin her future.
So Zhang arrives at the estate. He walks up to the gate, presumably excited after 15 years of waiting. The gatekeepers immediately block him.
You shut out.
He is turned away without a second thought. He goes back to the local inn, completely frustrated, not knowing what to do next. He starts wandering around the outskirts of the town, just hoping for a chance encounter, and amazingly, he gets one. He bumps into the father, official Liu, out for a walk in the fields.
The irony is incredibly thick here. The two men who love this girl the most, who hold her fate in their hands, are finally face to face in a random field.
And official Liu looks at Zhang and is completely shocked because he knows the story. He is expecting an old, decrepit man, if anyone at all.
Right.
But he sees this brilliant, charismatic, extremely articulate teenager. They sit down on the grass, they chat. And the father is so thoroughly impressed by this young man's intellect and demeanor that he invites him back to the house for tea.
Liu brings the wolf right into the sheep pen, completely unaware of who he is actually inviting in.
They get to the house, and Liu tells Zhang to sit in the guest room for a minute. The dad rushes into the inner chambers and tells his daughter, hey, you know that Zhang guy you've been waiting for, the one you've been talking about for 15 years? He's actually here.
Oh, she must have been so thrilled.
The daughter is overjoyed. The text says she forces herself up from her bed. She's been sick with longing. She sneaks over to the curtain to peek into the guest room, and she looks at the man sitting there.
And this is the fulcrum of the tragedy. What does she see?
A teenager.
Not the worn, aging, devoted scholar she remembers. Not the 50-year-old man she expected and prepared herself to serve. She sees a 15-year-old boy.
And based on that visual information, she makes a devastatingly logical conclusion. She believes her father, who she knows thinks she is crazy, has hired a teenage actor to impersonate Zhang.
It makes total sense from her perspective.
She thinks her dad is trying to trick her into believing Zhang is here to pacify her, or perhaps showing her this boy to prove that Zhang is dead and this is his son coming to break the news. Either way, she believes the promise is broken. She believes she's been made a fool of.
The crushing irony of this climax is masterful storytelling. Think about it. The very reward Zhang received from the heavens for his intense piety, his restored youth, is exactly the visual evidence that causes the reincarnation of his true love to lose all hope.
It backfired entirely.
The celestial gift of youth becomes a fatal mortal curse.
She creeps back to her room, falls into absolute despair. She refuses to speak another word, cries continuously for days, and literally dies of grief.
So tragic.
She dies of a broken heart because she thinks her true love is gone forever, and she is completely alone in a world that is playing cruel tricks on her.
Her parents' logical assumption that Zhang would be old was reasonable. Her assumption that her father was tricking her was reasonable. Everyone acts logically based on their understanding of reality, and yet it results in the ultimate tragedy. It shows the limits of human perception when dealing with celestial forces.
I do have to push back on Zhang's behavior here, though.
Okay, what did he do wrong?
Let's look at this pragmatically. Why didn't he just tell the dad about the magic lotus pool bath immediately?
Wow.
He had a lovely, pleasant chat in the fields with the father. He could have just said, "Hi, I'm Zhang. I know I look 15, but I'm actually 50. I took a magic bath in a dream because I chanted a lot of sutras for your reincarnated daughter. Can I see her?" If he had just communicated the weirdness up front, she wouldn't have died.
That's a fair modern critique, but we have to remember the strict social protocols of the era. You do not just walk up to a high-ranking Ministry of Revenue official and immediately launch into a story about how you are a reverse-aging magical being.
I mean, I guess.
Especially claiming you are here to marry his teenage daughter based on a past life promise from a ghost carriage. That is a quick way to get arrested or beaten by the estate guards.
Okay, fair enough. He'd look insane.
Zhang was likely trying to build rapport first, to prove his character, his intellect, and his social standing before making his incredibly wild claim. He was playing the social game. He just didn't realize the biological clock on her despair was ticking so aggressively.
Well, the clock ran out, all this waiting, all this karma, all these years, the magic baths, and it seems to have ended in the ultimate tragedy. She is dead. Again. But, as we know from the very beginning in our discussion, Zhang has extensive experience dealing with dead girls. He doesn't give up easily just because someone stops breathing.
The narrative cycle repeats itself, but with the stakes fundamentally altered. He is no longer dealing with a stranger's corpse. He is dealing with the soul of a woman he has loved across 2 lifetimes.
Which brings us to the final act of this incredible story, the resurrection and the final karmic payoff. Zhang is asleep at the inn, totally unaware that the girl he came to see has just died of a broken heart just a few rooms away.
But the connection they forged through years of chanting remains intact across the veil of death.
He has a dream. The girl appears to him in the dream. And here's the catch. In the spirit world, freed from her mortal eyes and mortal logic, she realizes it was actually him in the guest room.
The spirits recognize each other.
Her spirit recognizes his spirit, regardless of the teenage meat suit he's wearing. She explains the tragic misunderstanding, tells him she died of grief, and gives him incredibly urgent, hyper-specific instructions.
She knows the system now.
She says, "Go to the local Earth God shrine right now. Call my soul back quickly, and I can be saved. If you are late, it's over."
We need to pause and look at the mechanics of the afterlife here because this is fascinating. The Earth God, or the Tudigong, is the absolute lowest-ranking, most hyper-local official in the Chinese spiritual bureaucracy.
Like a middle manager.
He is essentially the celestial beat cop, or the village mayor. He manages the immediate day-to-day spiritual affairs of a specific village or town. When someone dies, the Earth God is the one who files the initial paperwork before the soul is transferred up the chain.
To the higher courts?
Yes, to the city gods, and eventually to the courts of hell for judgment. She hasn't been fully processed by the higher courts yet. Her soul is still lingering in the local holding area. Zhang has a tiny, fleeting window of jurisdiction to intervene before she is transferred out of the Earth God's local network.
It's like catching the paperwork before it gets put in the mail.
Exactly.
Zhang wakes up in an absolute panic. He rushes to the Liu family estate, ignores propriety, and demands to know about the daughter. The family, stunned, confirms she died 2 days ago.
Devastating confirmation.
Zhang breaks down weeping, and this is when he finally tells the father, official Liu, the entire truth. He spills everything. The dream he just had, the past life of the temple, the hunting karma, the 15 years of chanting, the magic lotus pool, the reverse aging, everything.
And this time, because the father is completely shattered by grief, his rigid, logical worldview is fractured. He is desperate enough to listen to the impossible.
They rush out to follow her dream instructions. They go to the local earth god's shrine, and they perform the specific ritual to call her soul back. Then they sprint back to the house. They open her coffin, which she hasn't been buried in yet, and they start stroking her body, calling her name, trying to coax the soul back into the flesh.
The physical intimacy of the coffin returns, perfectly mirroring their very first encounter in the temple all those years ago. But this time, he isn't asking a dead girl to visit him. He is dragging her back to life.
Suddenly, as they are stroking her body, there's a sound. A wet gurgling in her throat. Her lips part, and she coughs up this piece of phlegm that the text describes as being like ice.
Very vivid.
And once that solid, ice-cold block is expelled from her throat, she starts breathing. The color returns to her face, she moans, opens her eyes, and she comes completely back to life.
Break down the resurrection mechanics here, because Pu Songling doesn't just use magic wands. That phlegm-like ice is a visceral, deeply physical representation of death itself.
How so?
In traditional Chinese medicine and folklore, death is often associated with supreme cold and stagnation of energy, or qi. The ice phlegm is the literal physical embodiment of that cold, stagnant mortality.
So she's literally coughing up death.
Yes. By coughing it up, she is physically expelling death from her body to make room for the warm, living qi to return. It grounds a highly magical resurrection in a very biological, bodily reality.
It's undeniably gross, but it's incredibly effective storytelling. The father is overjoyed. He realizes this young man truly is his daughter's destined husband, a man who's now saved her soul and her physical life.
A double savior.
He throws a massive banquet, and when he checks Zhang's background and realizes Zhang is also from a highly wealthy, respected family whose sons have passed the highest exams, he's even more thrilled. It's the perfect match. They pick a lucky day, and Zhang and the girl finally, legally, properly marry.
After 15 years of waiting, 2 separate deaths, thousands of chanted sutras, and a magical reverse aging process, the promise made in the dirt by a ghost carriage is finally fulfilled in the waking world.
They stay with her family for half a year to celebrate. Then Zhang takes her back to his own home in Zaoyuan. And the text gives us this wonderful, lighthearted little detail to end on. Because Zhang bathed in the lotus pool and reverse-aged, and because she is a reincarnated teenager, they look exactly like a young, fresh-faced teenage couple.
Which is so funny given the context.
It thoroughly confuses everyone in the household. Visitors, servants, and extended family constantly mistake them for the young son and daughter-in-law, rather than the wealthy patriarch of the family and his new wife.
It's a comedic, deeply satisfying resolution to decades of intense spiritual and emotional toil. It restores harmony.
But the text doesn't quite end there. Pu Songling gives us one final wrap-up that closes the thematic loop perfectly. A year later, the father, official Lu, passes away naturally. The youngest son of the Lu family, the girl's little brother, is left vulnerable.
Without his protector.
Yeah, without his powerful father, he gets bullied by local tyrants, manipulated by bad actors, and ends up losing the entire family fortune. He is left with absolutely nothing.
The wheel of fortune turns again. Wealth, status, and political power are shown to be incredibly fleeting in this world, compared to the enduring nature of spiritual merit.
So what happens to the ruined little brother? Zhang steps in. He travels all the way back to Hebei, takes the young boy in, brings him to his own grand estate, and provides for him entirely, raising him alongside his own family and protecting him from ruin.